Hey, this is Kendall Live with My Home Option. I'm super excited to have you today. I'm super excited to get to share with you the home option triangle. This is going to be the seller's edition. So if you're looking to refinance or get lending on your house or something like that, this is not the video for you. But if you want to see something like this for refinancing lending, let us know down in the comments. We'll make something like that for you. Or this is for selling. We're going to be talking about a couple different things. We're going to talk about how to break down the facts of your home. We're going to be talking about how to look at the different conditions, specifically for your house, your home conditions, and the market conditions. And we're going to be breaking down really when you have three categories of equity, time, and your effort / cost into what you're going to be doing, and breaking those down, seeing what you want to do, what you don't want to do, how to break that down, how to figure out what is the best option for you. So let's get right into it. So the reason that we have a home option triangle over here at My Home Option is really helps us to set expectations with home sellers, homeowners right out of the gate. It helps us to understand the needs and the wants of a situation in a very easy way. So possibly you just stumbled across this video, or maybe you referred this video by our team to help kind of understand the triangle and understand how to break down your needs and wants, to figure out what you're going to be able to do in your situation, what you're looking for. So if we're drawing this out, first off, we're going to start with a triangle because we have our three kind of categories, which we mentioned a little bit already. So then the thing that we're evaluating here isn't your situation, it is your home. And then based off of your home, then you can decide what your situation entails and what you're needing, and then you can break it down for yourself there further. So the 3 points are equity, like I mentioned, and this is basically an easy way to break this down is if you're just thinking, how much money am I going to be able to get at the end of the day of this transaction out of what my home is worth. Next point is going to be time. And this is really how much time is the house sitting on the market, how much time do you have to invest into it. So this might be days on market, this might be invested into negotiations, this might be invested into showings, so when you have to leave the house, and the time that you're just having to put into this transaction, how long is it sitting there, what do you have to do, and all that kind of stuff. And then the last thing, which there's some things from time that bleed over into effort and costs, but kind of like one of those similarities, it might be the negotiations, but then also effort and cost. You're going to have any repairs that have to be done, any maintenance that has to be done, something like that. Maintenance, repairs, all that kind of stuff that has to be done. So really you've got your three categories of your time, your equity, your maintenance, and costs. From there you can kind of break down what you're looking for, what you need to have done. Some other things that we have to look at to help us evaluate what we're going to be doing here is the conditions. So let's first talk about different home conditions, then we'll talk about market conditions, then we'll jump over here and talk about facts. We'll break it all down. We have a couple of examples. We'll apply it and help you see just kind of exactly how this can apply to your situation. So in home, you've got 4 different categories. Your first category for your home is very good. Now this is going to be a home that it's probably been remodeled maybe within the last 5 years, give or take. Basically, it's a house that's in very good condition. You can tell it's been somewhat recently updated, somewhat recent updates. It's in very livable condition. We're not going to assume there's no new builds that are going to be a part of this triangle. So we don't have perfect. It's not perfect, but it's just about as perfect as you're going to get outside of a new build. There's some little things, but everything's running strong. There might be some little defects here or there, but for the most part, great home. From very good, we go to good. And this is really a home that is, it's probably 10 years, maybe 15 years that it hasn't been updated. it is, it's just a little bit more outdated, but it's still, it's somewhat fairly recent. You can tell that it's not like super old. It's very livable. It's just not been super recently updated like very good is. Your next condition is the fair condition. This is a home that's probably hasn't been updated in 20, 30, 40 years. Very good. This is a very specific, niched in. Good's a little bit wider. Fair is a very wide spectrum of fair. 20, 30, 40 years. We're year 2021 at the recording of this video. So, this is something that you're talking, it's got wallpapers, maybe even from the 70s, 80s, 90s. You've got older wallpaper. It just looks much older. You've got those golden, you might have like the golden light fixtures or golden handles and stuff like that. It's just a much older type of home. That's going to be more in the fair condition. Still, it's super livable. It might not be in, the absolute best condition. You might have some cracks in the walls or some, repairs and maintenance that need to be done. Some siding might need to be replaced or just different things here or there. Caulk needs to be done. That's kind of transitioning from that good to fair. But overall, it's a livable home. And then from there, you move into poor. And so what really takes a house from fair to poor is going to be its livability and the size of repairs that have to be done. So if it becomes unlivable, it's definitely that poor condition. If you have huge repairs such as major foundation, major roof, major plumbing, major electrical, major HVAC, that starts moving typically into the poor side of the spectrum as far as your home condition goes. And then also smells, like odors. If there's strong pet odors, maybe like cat urine or dog urine, that's something that's going to take it might take an ozone machine. It's going to probably take changing out most of the flooring, killing the house, or it's a special type of paint, but you're painting and just covering every surface in the house. You might have to be pulling some stuff out. That's moving it into the poor condition. Smoke, the smoke smell can be really strong and it sticks onto a house. So if there's a very strong smoke odor, that's typically moving a house into that poor range. So different very negative things like that a lot has to be done. As you move from fair to poor, this is like, here you're almost guaranteed going to sell with a realtor. There's not too many situations where it makes a lot of sense to sell to an investor buyer if you're in very good condition. Whereas down here at the poor, you're pretty much always selling to an investor buyer. At the end of the day, you might go through a realtor, but even if you use a realtor, they're going to be selling to an investor buyer. And so that's but then when you're in good and fair, that's where you don't really start to change. That's where most houses fall in this good to fair range. And that's where you've really got to start making some decisions. Now with the market, there's really 3 different market types. You're going to have hot markets. You also may have heard this referred to as a seller's market. You have neutral markets, and this is about that 6-month mark, and we'll kind of break that down a little bit more so you can understand where that number comes from and how to derive that number. And then you have cold markets, and you may have heard this termed as a buyer's market as well. And so to kind of explain, how to understand those market conditions, we'll break that down right over here. So basically, when you're talking about 6 months, that's talking about inventory on the market. And so I'm just going to give you an example of what that might look like. Let's say that you had last month, you had 6,000 listings. I'll put a line right there so you can differentiate the time and this information here. 6,000 listings, and let's say that 1,000 homes sold, and this is last month. So according to last month, this would be a neutral market, because if you take the 1,000 houses sold, divide it by the 6,000 listings that were on the market, you have you have your 6,000 listings, divide that by your 1,000 sold, and you end up with 6 months of inventory that are on the market. You can basically just draw that there, or you can even just draw your line right there. Simple math, you get down to you have 6 months of inventory. Let's say that your number of listings the next month goes down. Not as many people are selling their home. Now, there's only 4,000 listings on the market, still 1,000 homes sold, you're still selling houses at the same rate, but not as many people are listing because supply is going down. Now you have 4 months, 4,000 divided 1,000 is 4. You have 4 months of inventory on the market. That becomes, you're moving into a seller's market. Anything less than 3 months becomes a very hot seller's market. So let's say that, coming back to this same situation, now you have 2,000 listings, almost nobody's selling their house anymore. Comparatively, there only a third of the people are selling their house that were, originally at 6,000. You still have the same amount of people buying houses. So now you have 2 months worth of market supply. That's a very hot seller's market because you're below that 3 month mark. Anything above 9 months becomes very much a buyer's market. So kind of an easy example, if we went back to the original 6,000 listings, but instead of 1,000 homes selling per month, we have 500 homes selling per month. That is going to be 12 months of supply. So then you have a very strong buyer's market, and that just really causes the home sellers and the homeowners, when they're looking to sell, to have to negotiate quite a bit. So whenever you're kind of giving values, the reason that I write these up there is we give values to help us understand our situation and how to go from here. I would say here, if you are, if you have a very good home condition or you're in a hot seller's market, that's a deduction of 0 points. If you have good home condition or neutral, these aren't tied together necessarily, it's minus 1 point. If you have a fair home or you're in a cold market, you minus 2. If you have a poor home and there really isn't a market condition, maybe if you're in a strong buyer's market, this might go down to minus 3 over here, but pretty much just the condition of the home, minus 3 points. So then we go over here to the facts, and we're going to ask you a lot more when we get on a phone call, just to understand your situation, help point you in the right direction. But I'm just going to keep it very simple at 4 questions, 2 of them being our home condition, market condition. We're going to talk about the market value, and we're going to talk about how much is still owed on the note, if there is anything. So let's just say that our market value is $200,000. Let's say that you owe $100,000. So that isn't really a huge deal. Now we know that there's a very large spread on equity. There's a lot of options. That's kind of the biggest reason we need to know that, is just so we know what kind of options. If you were in a situation where you owed maybe $190,000, that puts us in a very different situation of what can be done versus when you only owe 100. So this video is going to be not so much about that option in particular. We're really going to be breaking down this home market if we had a large spread in equity. So then we'll also look at the home condition, and we are going to look at the market condition. So let's just assume in this first scenario, that we have a home that's in fair condition, been updated. Let's just assume that, we'll just say that this home is, I'm not going to go too many details, but we'll just say it's like 1987. It hasn't been updated in maybe 30 years. So it's, it hits that fair bracket. It's pretty outdated, but it's very livable. Market conditions, we're just going to say that we have hot market conditions. So this is going to be minus 2. This is going to be minus 0. So now we have to deduct from our points. We have to take off 2 points from our triangle. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this just so it doesn't get confusing as we kind of jump into this triangle. But as we're looking at this, now you have to make some decisions on what's most important for you. For some people, they're saying, hey, I honestly, I'm willing to give up equity, but I don't want to have to put any time in, and I don't want to have to put any effort in. Well, I can tell you almost right away that your investor buyer is going to be the way to go. But if that's not your case, if you're wanting to make some decisions, figure out kind of around that, still might be an investor buyer that's your best way to go, but we'll break it down from there. Maybe time isn't a huge deal to you. Like, hey, I'm willing to let it sit. It can sit on the market. but I know what I need to get out of my home to make it even make sense. And I really don't want to do any effort or repairs. Like I said, there's actually still scenarios where investor buyers can make sense. You can do owner finance, you can do subject to. There's many different routes from there, but it's not going to be probably your typical cash buyer that's going to make a lot of sense there. And then let's just say here, if you want to focus all your effort on, hey, I'm willing to put in a lot of effort and costs on the repairs that need to be done and all that kind of stuff to get it ready for the market, really to get it cleaned up and all that kind of stuff. But I want it to go fast and I want to get the equity done. Then you're probably gonna have to do some things ahead of time. And then you want to list it with a realtor and you're going to get top value. Now, most people aren't just going to be, hey, I'm going to give -2 points to one of these things. They're going to say, hey, Kendall, looking at this, I feel like I know what my house is worth. But at the end of the day, I don't really want to put any more money in, and I'm willing to sacrifice. I'm willing to let it sit for a little bit if I need to. Okay, looking at that, we'll just say I'm willing to give it a little bit of time. So we'll subtract 1 point here. Actually, it might make more sense if I put it on this side for you. So we'll take off -1 point there. And then we'll take off -1 point on the equity, so we know that price can come down. Well, probably your best bet, here for most people is going to be a realtor. We'll connect you with the right realtor, but even when we connect you with the realtor, now they'll be able to understand where they're able to negotiate because we've gotten some preliminary information together. And so, but that can vary differently. So let's do another example. This is going to be a very simple example. We're going to say that we are still in this hot seller's market, but we're going to say that for our home condition, it is in very good condition. So -0, -0 for being in a hot market. So there's really 0 that we have to give up. It shouldn't take you a ton of effort or cost because your home has been updated recently. There's not really anything that needs to be done. Should sell fairly quickly, and you should be able to get the maximum amount of equity possible. Now, does that mean that you shouldn't contact My Home Option? No, it doesn't. But what it does mean is that we can connect you with a realtor who's going to be able to understand how to move a really nice home, that are really well done home that in a hot market, and they're going to be able to get it moved for you fast. They're going to be able to get it moved for you for the most amount of equity possible. It's going to be a super easy, seamless process, transition, and all that kind of stuff for you. Now, last scenario that we'll jump in really quickly, just to kind of give you one more example, is let's just say that we are in a neutral market and our home is in fair condition. So fair -2, neutral. Now this is something to really note here, because now we have -3 points, but you never really want to give more than 3 points. You never really want to give more than 2 points per category, because if let's say you give -3 points to time, then or at least there's some categories. If you get -3 points to time, you're probably just saying that you're willing to let your house sit there forever, and that usually is not the case for most people. They're just willing to let it sit and ride out the market or something like that. For most of the time, people are still wanting something to happen. So you might say, hey, I'm willing to give -2 points to time and -1 to my equity, or I'm willing to give, I'm willing to let it sit for a little bit, and I'm willing, for the right offer, I will do some repairs to make sure that I get that right price. But you have to know what you're willing to give up, and you have to know that this house is going to be sitting there for quite a while with -2 points. One of the only places that it makes a ton of sense is if you're over here, saying, hey, I'm willing to give -3 points to my equity just to get this thing done super fast. Then you're probably talking to an investor who's, they're closing in like 7 days, and they're literally asking you to do nothing else. It is going to take a chunk of equity, but that's just kind of where you've got to figure out what your balance is. Let's say this house isn't fair. Maybe it's even moving on to poor condition. Maybe it's an inherited property. So you're saying, hey, The last thing I need, I'm going through an estate, the last thing that I need is to have to also worry about time and effort and cost at this point, because I have so much stuff going over here. That's totally fine. We have investors, we've got realtors who understand that estate process, that probate process, so we can connect you with them. So make sure that you reach out to us over here at My Home Option. Go to myhomeoption.com, schedule your appointment with us. We'll get on the phone with you. We will go through the home option triangle. We'll figure out where you need to be, and we will get you connected with a professional that's going to help you move this process along as best as possible to meet those needs, to meet those wants, and really ultimately give you the success that you're looking for. So look forward to seeing you in the next video.